Barrett Brook with Barrett Breakdown. What is the truth about what we saw yesterday? How much of it can we carry on this season, or how much of it... And like I said, it's not a product of playing the Browns, because I thought Carson Wentz still made some throws where the Browns defenders were in position. He just made good throws. It doesn't matter if they're Dallas defenders, New York defenders, Cleveland defenders. He made throws where he needed to make them. Now, will he have more pressure? Will there be better looks and stuff? Possibly, but Barrett can attest for this. Ray Horton's a pretty good defensive coordinator. I thought they were going to throw a lot more at him. Did they throw more at him? And did Carson Wentz handle what Horton threw at him? Because that was one of the concerns. Ray Horton's a very good defensive coordinator, Barrett, and he looked like that defense was pedestrian at times.
Well, you know what? I think that Ray Horton really didn't think that the receivers were as good as they were, and they played, I think, above what they thought they were going to play, and that put them in a position to be successful. I tell you what, the young guy, the kid just put the ball in there on some very, very tight pass. It was double coverage to, Jordan Matthews, and he did a great job of just threat to hold that only he could catch it, only Matthews could catch it, and it just goes to show he's a lot more mature in his reads and the progressions than I really thought. If you look at it, that playbook was opened up now. You could take exactly the same playbook that he gave Carson Wentz and give it to Alex Smith, and they can go into a game with it. He didn't spare anything. They ran a lot of scat protection where it was 5-down linemen against everybody they threw at him, and a lot of times it was a free rusher. He stood in the pocket, delivered the ball on time, and, he just played well beyond his years as a quarterback.
Yeah, the play that I really, we talk about breaking down the film there, that fourth down pass, when they send the blitzer right up the middle at him, he knows it's coming, and he not only stood in there and took the hit, he put the ball where it needed to be. Ertz made a nice catch, but a lot of guys, they don't complete that pass because they see the hit coming, and they try to get out of the way of it, and that causes the incompletion. He took the hit, and he's strong enough to make the throw.
Yeah, he showed a lot of sensible fortitude, understanding that he was going to get hit, looked it down the barrel, and deliver the ball. Like I said, scat protection, they ran a lot of cover zero or single high man underneath. Those are all blitz type of coverages that Ray Horton dialed up. And if you look at it, they double A-gap blitz a lot. First on that fourth down to Zach Ertz, it was a double A-gap blitz. They manned everybody on the outside with cover zero, and he was able to hit the slant for the fourth down, and then the very next play, he threw right over the top to Nelson Aguilar for a touchdown. That just goes to show he's a lot more advanced than I thought he was, especially not having the opportunity to practice with those guys that he was playing with, and also not being able to play during the preseason with the exception of one game, the first game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what really is intriguing to me, is that the speed of the game and just the way that he was poised after really only playing about 35 snaps. I mean, that is something that you should be excited about. Forget that he had great numbers and that he looked pretty good. It was the fact that the game didn't seem like it moved too fast after really limited play. A lot of these guys, they play in the preseason and they get all the reps in practice. He didn't get any of that stuff, and it still seemed like it wasn't too big for him.
Absolutely. The speed of the game didn't do much for him. He said he wasn't nervous. He went out there and proved he wasn't nervous. I was really surprised and shocked that he was able to go out there and not just go from the first read, but take it to the second and third read on a lot of those throws. If you look at the play where he went to Ertz on that play where he tossed it over and Ertz made the spectacular catch, he was actually the second option in that in that pass play. The second option. A lot of the times, he was able to with the player along the line who actually played well, even though he got hit a lot. They played well considering the fact they brought blitzes from everywhere. And Carson knew that he was going to get hit on those plays because he was an odd man out. He was the free man, the free release guy, the guy that that's going to go in, the quarterback down on that protection. So he'll learn to get the ball out a lot faster, understanding where the blitz is going to come from instead of just reading and reacting. He'll learn where it's going to come from faster, the way you get the ball out faster. But it goes along with his progression. He's ahead of the game right now, and he surprised me a lot in his ability to read the defenses, understand the off the line and what they were doing, what they were responsible for, and understanding where the free hit was going to come and hit him in the mouth.
This is an indication, Barrett, because let's be honest, I think there were times where you said, look, he's behind, and that has to do with the injury and stuff. but some guys just have it, and some guys don't. Some guys have the mental game. I think you look at the kid Prescott. He mentally has it. He didn't play in a pro offense. He didn't play in an NFL-style offense down there with Mullen, Mississippi. But some guys have the mental capacity where it just comes easier for them, and it helps to have the skill set to go with it. Wentz looks like he has the mental makeup.
Exactly. Dak Prescott, he definitely went out there and showed that, he could run an offense, but it wasn't near close to what what's the name was doing on the field. It's not even close to what he was doing. I mean, he didn't have the same reads. It wasn't advanced offense that he was running. It was definitely one of those things where they dumbed it down a little bit for him simply because they had a running game in which they could, play a lot faster with him. So I like the fact that Dak Prescott did play well, and it's going to be those two are going to be tied together. Wentz and Dak Prescott are tied together because they're rookies in the NFC East, and they both are trying to, prove themselves as the new era parents to the league and to the division. But I like to play at both of them. I thought it was going to be a thin quarterback class, but both guys played well this last game.
Hey, I gotta, I know Wentz gets the big headlines because he's the number 2 overall pick and he's the QB. But I thought Doug Pederson was really the MVP of the game yesterday. That game plan didn't ask him to do too much, but allowed him to showcase what he had when he needed to. He didn't put the handcuffs on him, but he just slightly took him off from time to time. I thought he had a really good game plan.
He did. He came in, and that's one of the things people aren't talking about. He actually had and went into a game plan in which was more conducive to his skill set. He understood what he could give Carson and how Carson could, take that and wrap his mind around it and play well in that game plan. I didn't think he would be able to play scat protection. Scat protection is a really hard protection, not just for rookie quarterbacks, but even NFL caliber quarterbacks. Now you have guys that can't do it, and don't do it as far as the scheme. That's when your 5 offensive linemen are responsible for 4 down linemen and the Mike linebacker. And everybody else that comes after that is a free hitter, a free hit right in the mouth of the quarterback. And he stood there, understood that he was going to get hit, and still delivered the ball on time.
Barrett Brooks is with us, Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game live, Breakfast on Broad at its new time. Thankfully, I bet you got a little bit more sleep today. 7 o'clock they start now on the Comcast network. Barrett, couple things, too. I want to get your take because you played the offensive line. That line had been maligned a lot in terms of, the protection specifically in the interior. Brandon Brooks, Barbary playing the left side, and Kelsey, I don't know, had the best game yesterday, but what did you think of the offensive line yesterday and their role in this win?
I think they played solid. I think they lift their game up, understanding that they will have a rookie quarterback back there. They try to protect him as much as they can. And a lot of the times he got hit were protection issues as opposed to guys getting beat physically. It wasn't a lot of that. Guys went out there, played strong, they played stout. And, I think only one sack that was across from the offensive line, and that was actually for Brandon Brooks. He got beat on an inside move, but it wasn't necessarily him getting overpowered. It was more so him understanding the protection, and Kelsey went the other way, and he thought Kelsey was going to be on his inside. Kelsey had to go the other way with the protection, and he just put one hand out, and once he realized Kelsey wasn't there, he tried to recuperate and make the block. He couldn't do it, and that's why they had to sack. But it wasn't as though the guy just beat him. It was more so the fact that he just didn't understand the protection, and he didn't understand that Kelsey was leaving him, so he was by himself on that play, as opposed to him just taking the whole guy, so it took half the guy. And that's how it caught the stat.
Hey, can you speak to, as an offensive lineman, we hear so many times, in fact, Doug brought this up, about the quarterback, and in fact, it's why Bradford did not play out in Minnesota, because they said he just didn't have the protections, the line stuff. When you hear that in a quarterback like Carson Wentz, when they say he just knows the protections and he knows that kind of stuff, can you speak to what that means for the people out there who are wondering what the heck that even means for a quarterback to understand what the line's doing?
Absolutely. You have different protections, and you have 5-man protections, 4-man, 5-man protections, 6-man protection, 7-man protection. When you have 5-man protection, that's just the offensive line blocking and whoever else comes. If they rush 4 defensive linemen and they blitz a linebacker and a safety, that means there's going to be one guy free regardless of how many people are there. There's going to be 1 or 2 guys free simply because the offensive line can't pick those guys up. They bring 6 guys instead of the 5 guys that are blocking, so 1 guy's made up free. Then you have slide protection, which is usually 7-man protection where you have a back or either a tight end or 2 backs. Will help you out with the slide. That means the offensive line will slide to one side of the field, and then the other 2 running backs or the safety, the tight end and the running back will have the play side. These different protections allow the quarterback to understand who's going to be hot, who's not going to be hot, who's going to be the free defender, who's going to have the hot route as far as the receiver out on the outside, if he has to break in early because they bring 1 more than the offensive line can do. These are all checks that the offensive line and the quarterback have to be in unison in order to pick up the blitz and understand where the ball is supposed to go. More times than not, you have to throw into the blitz. That means you have to throw into the guy that's free, and he's usually the guy that gets the big hit on the quarterback, whether he pulls it down, takes the sack, or throws it out of bounds, or like Carson did yesterday, complete the pass to the receiver for the first down on that 4th and 4.
A lot of stuff there, and that shows the mental that it takes to be able to play this game, and the fact that he had that much limited time to go over all that and look like he handled it pretty well. It seems like a good step. Let me get your thoughts on the defense, because I think it's underrated what the defense did yesterday. They got off it seemingly to a slow start. They weren't getting a lot of pressure on RG3, but I think in the second half they wore the Browns down, and the rotation of ends, you saw them, and then the double team that Cox kept commanding caused them just to be able to tee off on Robert Griffin III late in that game.
Yeah, it also comes to, the fact that the Browns were in a position where they had to get more receivers out instead of when they first started the first half, they were able to keep a receiver inside the backfield. When I say receiver, that means a running back and a tight end inside for protection. That means they wouldn't go out on the route. They would stay in and help block the front of the Philadelphia Eagles. So they would have double teams with a tight end or have a back come chip. Well, at the end of the game, when they started heating them up on defense, they couldn't keep a guy in the backfield or on the line of scrimmage as a tight end. They had to send all 5 receivers out. That's the running back, tight ends, and receivers. They had to get as many guys out as they could to try to make a play out there in space, and they couldn't do it simply because the rush of them with the one-on-one blocks trying to block the front 4 of the Eagles, they just couldn't do it. They couldn't block a one-on-one. You have to have an extra block in there to help out those guys, and at that point, there was nobody there, one-on-one. Of course, they're going to generate pressure now because you can't double-team Cox, you can't double-team Curry, you can't double-team BG. All those guys are phenomenal pass blockers when they're not being double-teamed. The first half, they got double-teamed. Then when they had the second half, they had to go out and get as many receivers out as they could. They couldn't do it. They couldn't block those guys. So that's why it would generate a lot more sacks, a lot more pressure in the second half as opposed to the first half.
Barrett Brooks with us. Don't forget to see him every weekday morning, 7 to 9 on Breakfast on Broad, and before and after every Eagles game on Comcast Sports Game, pre- and post-game live. Barrett, we're talking a lot about the positives. Were there things that you marked down that, hey, if they want to be a successful team, they're going to have to fix this? What were some of those things that we should be concerned about? Because it was, they played Cleveland, they won the game, but you don't do it 100% flawlessly.
Oh, no question. And the biggest thing I probably would say is the fact that Carson got hit way too many times and hit square a lot of times during this game. A lot of the time it was because of they just didn't have the protection right. He didn't read the protection right. He didn't get him in the right protection to pick up the blitz. And they could audible to a couple plays in which, would help him pick up the blitz as opposed to him getting hit. And that just comes with him getting more seasons in the offense, understanding more of what they have. Plus, another thing they have to worry about, they're starting to get hurt a little bit. Leo Spelman, he's a guy that he needed to play. He's the number 2 DB on the team. He's the second best cover guy on the team, Nola Carroll being number 1. His loss means a lot. They may have to go out in free agency and find another corner to come in, or they might bring up C.J. Smith, who's on the practice squad at this point. So there's a lot of factors that go in with him being out with his hamstring injury. It's a lot more it is bringing a lot more of a problem than people are giving credit for. Leaders McKim, like I said, was the second best DB on the team. They got to find somebody else who will come in, understands how to play this defense and who's comfortable with it. That's why I really think that they're going to bring up C.J. Smith from the practice squad to take, the reps off Leo from Kelvin at this point.
Played with Carson Wentz at North Dakota State. Ertz, too. I mean, looks like he could miss the game. He's got a displaced rib under the collarbone area, and that means that, hey, he was a big factor and a big weapon, but the Eagles could go to Trey Burton, who had a really good camp. He could be a bigger part of the offense with Ertz out, and they could really see what they have with this kid.
Absolutely. I think he'll take advantage of that opportunity. He's a faster guy than Ertz. He's a more athletic guy than Ertz. He just doesn't have the size that Ertz has. Ertz is the more complete player, but I'll tell you what, Trey Burton gives him the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. He's like one of those joker type of guys. He can go out there. He can play fullback. He can play in the slot. He can play in the wing position. He can play on the line of scrimmage as a traditional tight end. He brings a lot of different factors to the game. And, he didn't play his last game because he hurt. I think he's fully healthy now. He won't be a game-time decision. He'll be able to practice throughout the week and be okay to play. It's a good thing that they play on Monday as opposed to Sunday. That's an extra day for them to rest, but it also gives them the opportunity to see what they have. They also talk about Tobin coming in on goal line social situations and becoming like a tight end, playing that tight end position, maybe on the 4-minute drill where they have to run the ball, or even in the field when they have to 4th and 1 or something like that, where they need to get that extra yard, bringing him in as that tight end. But he's an offensive lineman, so they have some options. I think they'll be all right. And Trey Burton, we'll see what he has next if they need to run the same game plan as they did with Ertz.
Yeah, and one area we didn't talk about was the wide receivers. We didn't go in depth with them, but Matthews, who didn't play at all in the preseason. You had Aguilar, who was, very much criticized by people. In fact, people wanted to see him play in that final preseason game. I thought the most impressive part from Aguilar was on the touchdown pass that he beats Joe Hayden. That's not a stiff that he beats out there. And, they got these guys, Wentz, first, number 2 overall pick. You got Matthews, Aguilar, first and second rounders. Ertz is a second rounder. Beckham's a second rounder. If these guys can play to their potentials, all of a sudden maybe you don't have the question marks that we still think they have.
It shocked me. It really shocked me. Joe Hayden is a top 10 corner in this league. He's a Pro Bowler. He's one of the best corners in the league. And the fact that Nelson Aguilar was to beat on that play really shows that maybe we didn't see what Nelson really had during the preseason. Nelson Aguilar is one of those guys that he hasn't played up to his potential, but he played pretty well yesterday, catching everything that was thrown at him, and even caught passes that weren't even thrown to him. So he lifted his game up, and a lot of people in this game lifted their game up to help the rookie quarterback. Guys played well to make sure that a lot of the burden was put on the kid, and I like the fact that he took hold of the reins, commanded the huddle, commanded them to have to play well, and I like it. At this point, Wentz has a lot of growing up to do, but he got some guys to help him at this point, especially at the receiver position.
Carson Wentz, the Eagles' offensive line, showed a lot of promise. The receivers, hey, Barrett, what a difference catching the football will do for your team.
Can you believe that, that was actually something that we were, almost praying on, that we can have some receivers this year to catch the ball? And it was 7.8% of the balls were dropped for Sam Bradford last year. If you'd have gave me half of those drops, I guarantee you could have had 2 more games won, and they win the NFC East. That's actual, data that, we can look up. They dropped 7.8% of the passes thrown by Sam Bradford. That's ridiculous. That's the highest in the league.
It's terrible. And look, this isn't, again, a comparison between Wentz and Bradford, but Wentz, I think the size and strength was a big factor yesterday because he took some hits as he was throwing the ball, but he still has the strength to make the throw where he wants it when he's taking that shot. So that's an underrated attribute that we don't take into account all the time. A guy who's strong enough to take the hit and still put the ball where he wants to.
6'5", 235 pounds. He's a monster out there. He's a big quarterback. But I tell you what, they didn't take advantage of his running ability this last game simply because I think his ribs, were still a little, they're still a little sore. So they didn't do the zone read that they, that I really thought would be a mainstay in this offense, considering the fact he's a good enough athlete to run it. They had, Smith running a lot when they were in Kansas City. So I really thought they were going to run a little more zone read. They didn't run any, but they didn't have to because the kid picked up blitzes. The kid understood where the ball was supposed to go on those pass plays, and the offensive line played well enough to keep them clean for the most part. And then it also helped that they ran the ball pretty well, too. I'll tell you what, a guy that we haven't talked about that's been playing well, playing the last 2 years he's been playing well, but he didn't get a fair opportunity, Kenyon Barner. He's a sleeper. He can play. He's probably the most complete back we have as far as catching out the backfield, running in between the tackles, showing speed, and a kickoff returner. He's a pretty good back, man. I understand why they kept him when they weren't worried about Matthews getting hurt. He can come in and be a great find for this team if they had to use him.
All right, Barrett Brooks, the Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game live shows and Breakfast on Broad, weekday morning 7 to 9 now. It's new time on the Comcast network. You like that extra hour of sleep, I bet.
Absolutely, man. I woke up, I feel like I have a little normalcy right now. Instead of being in at 4, I'm in at 5 o'clock, man. That means a great difference as far as my sleep pattern.
I can only imagine, man. Well, good stuff, breaking it all down. We'll get Barrett's breakdown next week after the Eagles and the Bears on Monday Night Football. That'll be a late night for Barrett. Thanks, pal.
Dave, have a good one, bro.